Ainu is a language spoken by around 6,600 people in the Xinjiang region of western China. It's the native language of the Ainu people, but is only used among men. Women speak Uyghur, and this is also used by men when speaking to women and non-Ainu people. The language is thus what's known as a cryptolect, used to conceal what's being said and create an exclusive community of speakers. It's also a form of mixed language, formed under contact between Turkic and Iranian languages. It uses a Turkic Uyghur grammar and an Iranian vocabulary, with large amounts derived from Persian. Given the nature of its use as a secret language, it's practically never written, although when it is, it makes use of the Uyghur Arabic alphabet. Recently, use of the language has declined, and speakers use a greater proportion of Uyghur words compared to the Iranian of earlier times. Bhojpuri is an Indo-Aryan language spoken in the Bhojpur region of northeastern India. It has over 50 million speakers, making it the 35th most spoken language in the world, and about the 8th most spoken in India. Despite this, it isn't an official language of the country, and is only co-official in one state, although there are plans to make it official. This is because until recently it was considered to be a dialect of Hindi, even though it's more closely related to the likes of Bengali and Assamese than to standard Hindi. Historically, the language was written in the Kaithi script, but since the 20th century, Devanagari has become more common. Cornish is a Celtic language of Cornwall in southwestern England. In 1777, the last person known for certain to have been a fluent native speaker of the language died, although this is debated and there are reports of others surviving into the 19th or even almost the 20th centuries. Despite going extinct, the language is undergoing revival efforts, and there are now thought to be a few hundred fluent speakers, making it one of the 6 surviving Celtic languages. For many people, it forms a strong element of Cornish identity, and can now be seen in many areas of life, from education and road signs to television and art. Deghinag is a language spoken by the Deghitan people in villages along the Yukon River in western Alaska in the USA. There are perhaps only 2 speakers remaining, who are likely elderly, and the language is critically endangered. It's an Athabascan Na-Dene language, making it related to Navajo, Tlingit, and Eyak. There are 2 main dialects, Kuskokwim and Yukon, spoken in different groups of villages. The language has a number of unusual and interesting phonemes, such as dental affricates, and voiceless and glottalized sonorants. Ewe is the language of about 20 million people in countries in West Africa. Like most indigenous languages of the region, Ewe is tonal, with 3 simple tones and few contour tones. Each vowel also has a nasalized equivalent. It has a system of naming whereby children are named after the day of the week on which they're born, until they're old enough to choose their own names. It also has logophoric pronouns, which mark a referent as being different to something or someone who's previously been referred to, meaning that in a sentence like, "he said he left," speakers can show the 2 he's as being either the same person or different, thus reducing ambiguity. Fiji Hindi is a language spoken in the Pacific country of Fiji. It's very mixed in its origins, primarily deriving from the Eastern Hindi language Awadhi, as well as Bhojpuri and Hindustani. It's also influenced by Bengali, Gujarati, Punjabi, Tamil, English, Fijian, and some other languages. It arose from the population of labourers brought to Fiji to work plantations by the British. Its phonology and grammar are fairly similar to the Hindi languages, although there are clear influences from the substrates, and it has a number of features not found in the source languages. In the last 50 years, significant numbers of Fiji Hindi speakers have emigrated to countries such as Australia, New Zealand, Canada, and the US, and there are smaller communities in a few other countries. Guarani is the co-official language of Paraguay, along with Spanish, spoken by about 6.5 million people, just less than 90% of the country's population. There are also speakers in neighbouring South American countries. When the Spanish colonists arrived in the 16th century, the native people resisted attempts at enforcing use of Spanish. Given that the area wasn't considered too important by the invaders, the governors instead learned Guarani, something which didn't happen anywhere else on the continent, where colonial languages are by far more common. The language has the rare feature of extensive nasal harmony. If a stressed vowel is nasal, this nasalization will spread to all vowels until a stressed oral vowel is reached. Voiced stops and approximants will also nasalize if affected. Hadza is an isolate language spoken in Tanzania. There are about 1,000 speakers, many of whom are hunter-gatherers. The speakers are one of two groups with the most divergent mitochondrial DNA, meaning that they were among the first surviving groups of people to split off from the rest of humanity. The language uses clicks, so at one stage was classified with the Khoisan languages. It has a two-way grammatical gender distinction, but unlike languages such as French and Italian, the feminine is the default used for groups of mixed natural gender. There's influence from several nearby languages, most of which is universal, but some has led to slight regional variation, which otherwise doesn't appear to be present in the language. Ingush is primarily spoken in the Russian Republic of Ingushetia, on the southern border with Georgia. Overall, there are about 450,000 speakers, of which just under 40,000 live in Ingushetia. It's a North Caucasian language, related to Avar, Tsez, and most closely, Chechen. Like most Northeast Caucasian languages, it has a very large consonant inventory at 36, although this isn't as large as some of its neighbours. Also, like other members of the family, it's an ergative-absolutive language, perhaps with some features of nominative-accusative languages. It also has a number of cases, which are marked on both nouns and pronouns. It doesn't show much dialectal variation, although one dialect does exist, Galain Tsez, which is an intermediate between Ingush and the nearby Chechen language, with which Ingush shares a degree of mutual intelligibility. Jeju is a Koreanic language, spoken by around 5,000 people on the island of Jeju in the South China Sea, just south of Korea. Although historically it was considered to be a dialect of Korean, in more recent years it's gained recognition as a language in its own right. It diverged from mainland Standard Korean sometime around the 15th century, and today the two are not mutually intelligible. It contains a number of loanwords from languages such as Japanese, Mongolian, and Chinese, although most words are fairly similar to those of Korean. The language is endangered, with no remaining monolingual speakers. All fluent speakers are elderly, and there's little to no teaching of the language in schools, with many of the few available courses being insufficient to properly teach and inspire use of the language. The Kurdish languages are a group of closely related languages and dialects in the Indo-Iranian family, spoken in areas of the Near and Middle East, such as Turkey, Iran, Iraq, Syria, and the Caucasus. The languages form what's known as a dialect continuum, where multiple distinct languages exist, but the boundaries between them are blurred by many dialects, which can be mutually understood. There are about 3 main languages which aren't mutually intelligible, and have between them around 25 million speakers. Due to political tensions in Kurdish-speaking areas, some countries ban or restrict use of the languages in certain contexts. Lakota is the language of around 2,000 people in North and South Dakota in the northern USA. It's critically endangered, with only a few young speakers, although there are several classes available for both children and adults as part of the revitalization effort. Despite this, it's one of the most spoken Native American languages. It's a Siouan language, related to Crow, Dakota, and Omaha. There's a difference between men's and women's speech, with certain modal and evidential markers having different forms depending on the speaker's gender. It also features 4 series of stops: voiced, voiceless, ejective, and aspirated, the latter of which also has velarized allophones. Along with English, Maltese is the co-official language of Malta. It's spoken by around 500,000 people, mostly in the Mediterranean island country of Malta, just south of Sicily. It's a Semitic language, descended from a form of Arabic spoken in Sicily and Malta between the 9th and 13th centuries. However, it received strong influence from Italian, Sicilian, and other Romance languages, such as Norman, in both vocabulary and structure. It's the only official Semitic language in the European Union, and the only one written in the Latin script. There are several dialects of the language, although urban varieties are generally closer to the standard, and rural varieties are generally more Semitic and closer to the ancestral language. About 52% of Maltese words are Italian or Sicilian, mainly content words, while grammatical words are mainly Semitic, a distribution very similar to English, with its French and Germanic elements. Nubian is a language of southern Egypt and northern Sudan, spoken along the Nile by just over 600,000 people. It's a descendant of the Old Nubian language, which was spoken between the 8th and 15th centuries. It therefore has one of the longest written histories in Africa, and the longest of the Nilo-Saharan languages. The language is tonal, distinguishing high and low tones. There are also long vowels and geminate consonants. There's no standard writing system used, although Old Nubian used a variant of the Coptic alphabet. Other scripts used to write modern Nubian are Latin and Arabic. Japanese is sometimes quoted as being a language isolate, unrelated to any other language. In fact, it belongs to a small family of languages, also including the Ryukyuan languages, spoken on the Ryukyu Islands, in the south of Japan. The largest of these languages is Okinawan, with about 980,000 speakers. It's generally written in hiragana, although this isn't standard, and Latin, kanji, and katakana are also used. The language has been treated as a dialect of Japanese for most of its history, and often still is today, even though it's not understandable to Japanese speakers. Its use has often been discouraged or punished, so many speakers are switching to a form of Japanese and not teaching it to younger generations, making the language endangered. There are some revitalization efforts, but the language isn't taught in schools, making it very difficult to spread awareness. Picard is a Romance language of the Langues d'Oil branch, making it related to French. It's spoken in the Picardy region of northern France and in Belgium by around 700,000 people. The speakers are mostly elderly, and the language is used less and less every day, so is considered to be severely endangered by UNESCO. It only has official recognition in Belgium, but has limited support in France, and is often just considered to be bad French, despite some remarkable differences. Again, this language has no standard orthography, although one commonly used is the Feller-Cartan transcription, which is an adapted version of a system used to write the Walloon language. Qashqai is a language spoken by around 1 million Qashqai people in southern areas of Iran. Written in a form of the Persian alphabet, it's an Oghuz Turkic language very closely related to Azerbaijani, but also a relative of Turkish, Turkmen, Kyrgyz and Uzbek. It uses a lot of loanwords from Persian, particularly in military and administrative contexts, but also takes loans from Arabic and a few from other nearby languages. Like most other Turkic languages, it has vowel harmony, where vowels are either front or back, and a word can only ever include all front or all back vowels. The language has a variety of suffixes, and many of these have both front and back vowel equivalents. Romani is a group of languages and dialects spoken by just under 5 million Romani people across Europe. Included under the umbrella term of Romani are several separate languages, a number of close dialects, and a few mixed languages, where a Romani language has adopted the grammatical structure of an unrelated regional language. The languages are part of the Indo-Iranian family, closely related to languages like Gujarati, Damari and Punjabi, although they've had numerous influences from European languages. They're recognised minority languages in over a dozen countries, making Romani perhaps the second most spoken minority language in the EU. Despite the fairly large number of speakers, Romani is endangered, and there are probably no monolingual Romani speakers remaining. Swati is the official and most spoken language of Eswatini in southern Africa. It's a Nguni Bantu language spoken by around 2.5 million people in Eswatini and South Africa. Like several related languages, Swati uses clicks, having 6 of them. It's also tonal, with 3 tones, has breathy, aspirated, ejective and implosive stops, lateral fricatives, and alveolar labiodental affricates. Like most Bantu languages, it has a system of noun classes, with the class marked by a prefix on the noun stem. It also features polypersonal agreement, where a verb agrees with both the subject and the object of a sentence, and Swati also factors noun class into this system, giving verbs a total of 43 agreement morphemes. When people discuss grammatical case, one language which is often mentioned is Tsez, a northeast Caucasian language spoken by 13,000 people in the Russian Republic of Dagestan. The language has a large number of cases, somewhere between 39 and 64, which is the largest number of any known natural language. Being a northeast Caucasian language, it has a large number of consonants, at 33, including pharyngeal fricatives and ejective obstruents. However, the syllable structure is quite simple, so consonant and vowel clustering doesn't occur to a great degree. It's an agglutinative language, stacking many different suffixes onto a root to form words. Like Swati, Tsez has a system of noun class, although it marks this class through agreement prefixes on some other words, like verbs, adjectives, adverbs, and postpositions, instead of putting them directly onto the noun. Unserdeutsch is a German-based creole, originally from Papua New Guinea. Today there are 110 speakers, 100 of whom mostly live in Australia, due to most speakers emigrating there after Papua New Guinea gained independence in 1975. It's the only full German-based creole in the world, although it's quickly disappearing. Most speakers are bilingual, and there are few to no young speakers. The language developed in a German-run orphanage, where the children also only received German medium instruction at school, so began speaking a pidginized form of the language in their own time. It uses mainly Tok-Pisin grammar with German words, although also has influences from other languages such as English. It has several features characteristic of German that's being learned as a second language, indicating that the original speakers never reached full proficiency in the language when the pidgin developed. There are 3 sign languages used in Spain: Spanish sign, Catalan sign, and Valencian sign. The least common of these is Valencian sign, which is used by between 6,000 and 10,000 people in the Valencian community of eastern Spain. It's closely related to Catalan sign and may even be a dialect of it. Valencia was the first of the autonomous communities of Spain to officially support sign language, although Valencian sign specifically isn't mentioned. The language is used by the deaf members of the community, but is rarely used in official functions, except in otherwise spoken administrative contexts. Wagiman is an isolate language, which in 2016 only had 18 speakers left. There are 2 very similar dialects, the light language and the heavy language. The grammar of Wagiman is very interesting. Whereas in most languages, verbs are a very large, open class of words, in Wagiman there are fewer than 50 verbs. These verbs express very general or cross-linguistically common meanings, while another class of words, called co-verbs, carry more specific meanings, although co-verbs can only occur together with a verb. Nominals in the language are ergative absolutive in their case marking, while pronouns are nominative accusative. Xiang is a Chinese language spoken by 38 million people, mainly in the Hunan province of China, but also in a few other parts of the country. There are traditionally 2 dialects, Old Xiang and New Xiang, although both of these are modern varieties, and the names only indicate levels of conservativeness. Modern linguists use different classifications of the dialects, but they're very hard to classify, particularly due to the heavy influence of Standard Mandarin, which some dialects of the language are very closely related to. The language uses 5 tones, unlike the 4 of Mandarin. There are also nasalized vowels. Xiang was the mother language of the 20th century communist leader Mao Zedong. Yola is an extinct language which was spoken in Forth and Bargy in the south of Ireland until it went extinct in the 19th century. It was an Anglic language, descended from Middle English, which was brought to Ireland when the Anglo-Normans invaded in the 12th century. It died out due to the spread of modern English in Ireland, although continued to see some usage in religion into the 20th century. Given that it split off from the English spoken in Britain relatively early, it showed several conservative features, such as the vowels, which had only partly been affected by the Great Vowel Shift. It also had a few innovations, both in its phonology and vocabulary. There are no native speakers left, although a few people have learned the language to varying degrees, and the local dialect of English still has a few Yola influences. Zuni is a language isolate spoken by just under 10,000 people in the southern US state of New Mexico. The speaker number includes a number of children, so unlike other Native American languages, it isn't in immediate danger of extinction. The names of Zuni speakers have very important religious and cultural meanings, and are therefore very personal. For this reason, Zuni adults are usually referred to by their relationship with other people, mainly children. The language isn't known to be related to any other language, but has been influenced by many of its neighbours, such as Hopi, Navajo, and Tanoan. Thanks for watching. Why not like or share the video?